Grief is a Part of Life by Cherokee Billie. All of us have suffered grief at some point in our lives. The death of a family member, the death of a marriage, the end of a romantic relationship, losing a job unexpectedly, or the death of the family pet causes grief. It doesn't matter how it happened, how long you knew it was coming, how sick they may have been. When the loss comes, grief comes in like a flood. Every emotion you have ever felt rises to the surface, and you will hurt inside to the marrow of your bones. Your first thought is you will not survive it. You'll never overcome it, and you scream, yell, cry, beg, plead, blame, and think you are not ever going to get away from the horrible pain you are feeling. Grief is a part of the cycle of life, but is the part of life most of us do not understand, much less know how to cope with it. When our pain is so great, it is no wonder we plead with God to let us die as well. Something so dear and so precious has been snatched from us, and we want answers now. We do not want to hurt, to feel the pain so searing we do not think our heart can bear it. Sometimes we feel nothing. We are almost numb. Then when we do start to feel the pain and loss, we don't know how to cope with it or our emotions. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross defined the 5 stages of grief as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. These are all stages of the process, and until you reach the acceptance stage, you may go back and forth from one stage to another or be in several of these stages at the same time. No two people grieve alike, and no one should encourage someone in grief to get over it. Because people grieve differently, they should be allowed to grieve in their own way and let the process run its course. On those rare occasions when someone's grief is so great that they shut everyone out of their life and begin to build a shrine or memorial to their lost loved one, and their grief looks disproportionate, then someone should suggest grief counseling. Usually, counselor, advisor will find that the death or loss was traumatic, but it also the catalyst for deeper buried emotions that suddenly rush to the surface, preventing that person from getting a grasp on reality for a while. They will know how to help someone unclutter their emotions and help them deal with their grief correctly. Time itself is healing. In due season, the grieving process will be completed. Keep in mind as you are grieving, it is your pain, not the pain of someone else that helps you. It is a journey you must walk by yourself, even if you have a good support group of loving friends and family around you. As different as we are, so is our grieving process. Do not expect your grief to be like mine or think I am not grieving right. The 5 stages are a part of coping with the loss of a loved one. They are tools to help us identify our feelings and emotions. Everyone goes through them all, but not necessarily in a prescribed order. As we gain knowledge of the hold grief has on us, we become better equipped to cope with life and with loss. Denial is the first stage of grieving. A feeling of numbness engulfs us. We don't seem to feel anything. Nothing makes any sense. There is a combination of feeling helpless, hopeless, and wanting to die on the one hand, and on the other hand it's all so surreal, like a nightmare, and we can't wake up. When the reality slips to the surface, we have to remind ourselves to breathe. We exist from second to second, then minute to minute. Sometimes it's like being in a bubble, and we can't feel anything. We function in disbelief, not wanting to accept what has happened. Being inside the bubble is a coping mechanism that kicks in to help us cope with our grief. As long as the bubble remains, we somehow get through the shock of our loss and pain. This is the body's way of letting us get through the roughest spots as easily as possible. May seem to be holding up great to others, when actually we are in total denial, but sooner or later the bubble will slowly begin to leak and we really begin to feel the pain of our loss, to question why and blame everyone and everything, even God, for causing us so much hurt. It is not a rapid process, but sooner than later we come back into the real world again, and the pain is overwhelming. We don't want to hurt or feel, but to fully recover from grief, we must be able to move forward, so these feelings of denial will now begin to surface. This is the beginning of the healing process, even though we don't see it that way. Anger almost always follows denial. We are angry that we are hurt, our loss is real, it isn't a bad dream, it really happened. Anger is a pardon me folks, Angry is a necessary part of the healing process. No matter how long it takes you to get through it, anger needs to be released, not bottled up. The sooner you get rid of your anger, the sooner you will begin to heal. Your whole world just changed, and so has everyone around you. Being angry can be healthy if you direct it to the center of your pain rather than play the blame game. What you are feeling is the natural order of change as a result of your loss. Embrace the change and let your anger keep you focused on the real reason you are hurting. Normally, our anger is directed at doctors, family, friends, loved ones, and even toward ourselves. You feel abandoned, rejected, deserted, and you lash out at those closest to you. Again, this is a normal part of the process of healing from grief, but try not to take it out on those around you. Rather, be angry at the cancer, the divorce, the loss of income, or whatever caused you this much pain. Focus your energies on being angry at the cause, not at people. We are normally taught to suppress anger rather than feel it, but in a situation of grief and intense pain, anger needs to be released. Bargaining is the process of pleading for the situation to change. We want life returned to what it was. We want our loved ones restored. We want to go back in time, find the tumor, recognize the illness quicker, or stop the accident from happening. You make offers to do anything if only your loved one would be spared or even come back. I will never be angry at my loved one again if you'll just let them live. After a loss, we make statements like, what if I spend the rest of my life helping others and when I wake up this will only be a bad dream? After we plow through all the if-onlys or what-ifs, we discover this is when guilt becomes bargaining's best friend. While we are in the if-only phase, guilt steps in and causes us to find fault in ourselves, and we second-guess what we think we could have done differently. We will do anything not to feel the pain of this loss. We try to negotiate our way out of the hurt. We can't go back in time. Bargaining serves its purpose in the healing process, but it never works. It is just another stage of grief and our response to feelings that can last for minutes, hours, days, weeks, or even months. We feel like we're on a roller coaster going in and out of one stage and then another. We tend to forget that these stages are responses to feelings that we have at different times, places. There is no set schedule for their duration. We do not enter and leave each individual stage in an orderly fashion. We may feel one, then another, and back again to the first one. Our emotions are out of balance, and it's like riding a roller coaster. Depression from grief is not a sign of mental illness. When our bargaining efforts fail, we start thinking about our present situation. Emptiness and aloneness becomes unbearable, and grief enters our lives on a deeper level than we ever imagined. Depression moves in and takes over. but is another appropriate response to a great loss. We withdraw from life, feel like we are in a fog of intense sadness. We wonder if there is any point in even trying to start over when it could possibly end the same way. Why go through it all again? Depression after a loss is often seen as unnatural, something to be fixed, something to snap out of. The loss of a loved one is a very depressing situation, and depression is a normal, appropriate response. If we did not experience depression after a loved one dies, one would wonder about that. When the realization that your loved one is gone and is not coming back, it is understandably depressing. If grief is a process of healing, then depression is one of the many necessary steps we have to take along the way. Acceptance is not the concept of being all right or okay with what has happened. Most people never feel okay or all right about the loss of a loved one. This stage is about accepting the reality that our loved one is permanently gone and we have to live without them. We will never like this reality, but eventually we will learn to accept it and live with it. We have to learn to live now in a world where our loved one is missing. Efforts to maintain life as it was before a loved one died prove futile. In time we see that we cannot keep living in the past, since it has forever changed, and we must learn how to live with that change. We must learn how to start living again, but it isn't easy. Acceptance may be just having more good days than bad ones. As we begin to enjoy our life again, it is quite common that we might feel we are betraying our loved ones. We can't replace what we lost, but we can make new friendships, new relationships, and start new beginnings. Rather than deny our feelings, we should listen to our needs. We change, we grow, we evolve. We begin to reach out to others and become involved in their lives. We invest time in our friendships, in our relationships, and with ourselves. We can't begin to live again until grief has run its full course. How long it takes is different with each person, and there is no timetable to follow. It takes as long as it takes, because it is as unique as you are. You will never forget the one who left you or the loss you experienced, but you will move on with your life. The sun will come out again, the birds will sing, laughter will flow out of your heart once more in spite of what you think now. In due season you will move toward a different tomorrow. Life is precious. Treasure it. Love is priceless. Hold on to it. God doesn't mind if you ask why, and He doesn't mind if you even blame Him. He knows that down the road you will survive this and grow from it. God did not take your loved one to teach you something, or because He needed them in heaven. This isn't how a loving father acts towards his children, so why would God do that to you? He wouldn't, and He didn't. While you think He abandoned you along the way, He was the one carrying you through it all, and He has bottled every one of your tears. The good news is God restores your life, but somewhere deep inside your heart will always carry the footprints of your loved one forever. They will never be more than a whisper away, and it is in learning this lesson that we learn to embrace death and loss as a part of the cycle of life. Life goes on in another realm of the spirit world beyond our view, and we know that they are well, happy, and free of pain, sorrow, and illness. One day, our time to take that trip to the other side will come, and we will see them again and be with them for an eternity. That is our comfort and peace, allowing us to go forward, knowing that one day we will meet again. I have been counseling people for many years as a spiritual advisor, and I do understand what happens during the grief process. If you are going through this, contact me and let me help with the healing process. I am always here to help. Many blessings, and lots of love and light, Cherokee Billie.